Hi, I'm Richard Ellison, and I designed and folded this origami beaver. This design has a nice three-dimensional shape, and some of the edges look kind of soft and rounded, like the actual creature. I can fold this design out of standard origami paper, which we call kami, but I will run into some trouble. The three-dimensional body of the beaver is formed from large crimp folds that terminate on either side of the animal's back, forming a body with a cross-section shaped like a U. When these sort of folds are performed with standard origami paper, it tends to spring out and partially unfold, causing the animal's legs to splay outwards. A well-known method of securing crimps like these is to use locking folds on the interior of the model. If creased very well, this technique will secure the three-dimensional form and keep it in the desired shape, at least for a while. Even with techniques such as this, many designs folded from standard origami paper do have a tendency to come partially unfolded and lose their shape over time. Wet folding is a technique that can solve this problem and has some other side benefits as well. I begin by wetting a paper towel in a bowl of water and wiping down my paper. For this demonstration, I'm using a paper called elephant hide, which is very well suited to this technique. I wet the paper all the way to the edges on both sides. And then I give the front side another wipe. At this point, I let the water soak into the paper. The fibers in the paper will expand asymmetrically, causing my square to become a rectangle. I can see this clearly by bringing edge to edge and checking alignments. It's no longer square. The paper must be recut, and this is just a predictable part of full sheet wet folding. I now have a square, and I can begin folding the design normally. Elephant hide is a thick paper which can really give your hands a workout if folded dry, but when it's damp, even slightly, it becomes supple and yielding. If I sense that the paper is beginning to dry out, I reach for my spray bottle and mist the paper to keep it damp. I might even give it a wipe with the wet towel. If the paper looks shiny and wet, I really have put too much water on it, so I just blot it and pat it until it's just damp. Most of the structural folds forming the base still need to be creased firmly. Here I'm using a Teflon bone folder. My folding technique does have to be modified a bit when wet folding. The paper gets soft and behaves like thin leather. Maneuvers such as this open sink don't automatically snap to existing creases like they do with dry paper. On the other hand, certain kinds of maneuvers become easier when wet folding, such as this closed wrap. The paper doesn't crumple much at all, it just starts behaving a little bit like fabric. As the folding progresses, the paper is constantly drying out and must be replenished with water from the mister. And when I'm able, I open the model to gain access to the interior. When I have to fold a great many layers of paper, it can help to give it an extra misting to really soften it up. I let the moisture soak into the paper, exercise it a little, and then execute the fold. My bone folder helps to flatten the paper firmly, and elephant hide, as its name implies, is very tough paper and can stand up to this kind of abuse. Finally, I've come to the final shaping. My crimp folds are in place, and I give them another spray with the bottle to ensure that they're damp. I've bought some tiny wooden clothespins from the arts and crafts store and I use them to hold the folds in place. I clamp them one at a time. And I'm continually reshaping the body. Because I've kept the paper damp, it it's soft, and I can continue to just shape it with my fingers almost like clay or fabric. Another important tool that I use is painter's tape. I wrap it around the model to prevent the body from expanding. All the while, I'm constantly looking for areas that need to be shaped just a little bit more. I work my way around the model, wetting first, and then securing with an appropriately sized clothespin. And in this case, I stuff the animal with wads of tissue paper to help keep the body cavity in a nice rounded shape. And then finally, I wrap the entire thing in painter's tape. When I've done just about all I can do, I leave it to dry out overnight. And when it is completely dry, I get to unwrap the whole thing like a present on Christmas morning and see the results. I use painter's tape because it tends to come off of the paper cleanly. And that is the last clothespin. And every fold is now holding very securely without the use of glue or tape. Because the paper is good and thick, the model is very sturdy and it can stand easily on its own. Unlike papers containing foil, you can squeeze, poke, bump, or drop a wet folded model and it will not dent or become damaged. The model is durable and its shape is permanent. If there are one or two features that need further shaping at this point, I can re-wet them individually with a small paintbrush and continue this process. This beaver is my own original design, but all the other techniques in this video are not original at all. They were developed by many origami masters over a period of decades and who were generous enough to write down and pass along their secrets, and I am indeed very indebted to those folders for teaching us all this wonderful technique.